You are listening to the Project Management Podcast at pm-podcast.com, and we are coming to you live from the 2014 PMI Global Congress in Phoenix, Arizona. And with me here in the exhibition hall is Joseph Flayev. Hello, Joseph.
Hello, Cornelius. How are you doing?
I am doing very well.
Good.
How's your Congress going?
It's really good.
Yeah. You've already given your presentation. In fact, you've finished your presentation, picked up your things, and walked over here.
Basically, yes.
Your presentation, what's the title?
It's why some teams flop and other teams rock.
Why did you choose that topic?
I chose that topic because I think there's nothing else that has more predictive power for the success or failure of your projects, programs, or products than the health of your teams.
Okay. That's a good segue because I suppose this is also what people are going to get out of our conversation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That particular golden nugget there. Let's take a step back. Let's talk about the presentation itself and you being here.
Yeah.
This is a financial expense for you because, this is in Phoenix. You don't live here. You're a presenter, however. How does PMI treat you? What kind of expenses is PMI paying for you?
They treat me very well.
Okay.
As for being a speaker here, they pay for my full Congress admission.
Okay. So you pay your own flight, you pay your own hotel.
Pay my own flight, pay my own hotel, but other than that, that's...
Okay. But of course, you're now here and you can mingle and
Yes.
get the connections going and do the networking.
Yep.
All right. Okay. So can you give us a 30-second brief overview of why teams flop?
Well, every team that flops actually flops in its own unique way.
Okay.
Right,
so each team is different. So
every team
each
is different, and they're all
for another reason.
If they flop, they're dysfunctional in their own unique and diverse ways. But like the opening of Anna Karenina, those that succeed all succeed in very similar ways.
So the right question to ask is not why two teams flop, because a million reasons.
Yeah.
The correct question to ask is why do they rock?
Yes.
Okay, then let me ask the right question. Joseph, why do teams rock?
Before we talk about why teams rock, I want to talk about what a team is.
Okay, what is a team?
Because we have to understand what we're talking about
Okay.
first so that we can put that into context. A lot of times you'll hear people talk about the definition of a team, and they'll talk about a group of people, which is, okay, a team is a group of people, and they all have a common goal. But a group of people with a common goal can describe a group of marathon runners.
Yes.
They're a group of people. They're all working towards a common goal, yet they're not a team, right? The thing that defines a team, that makes them different than just a group of people, is two simple things. One, they have a goal, but it's a goal for which they're mutually accountable. So one person can't claim success without the whole team being successful. And likewise, one person won't fail without the whole team failing, right? They all succeed or fail together. Sports teams have this inherent just in the way that they're designed, right? The goal is to win the game.
Right.
You may win MVP of the game, but that's not the goal. The goal is as a team to win the game, right? The other thing is to be interdependent. So if a team is mutually accountable for a goal and they are interdependent, that makes a strong team. That makes them able to be a team. Doesn't mean there'll be a team that rocks, but that makes them able to be a team. There may be a team that really doesn't do very well at all.
It flops in its own unique way.
Flops in its own unique way, yes. The one factor I found in my research for the presentation here that is most deterministic of the success or failure of a team is a sense of psychological safety. It's a term that was coined by Amy Edmondson in her book Teaming, psychological safety. And it's not a sense of safety between you and me. Like I feel safe with you, I feel comfortable around you. It's actually an organizational safety. It's an organizational concept. So I feel safe in this company, in this context, in this team, right? I feel like they will protect me. I'm not going to get ripped apart if I speak up. I feel safe to speak
And that
up.
is the one common denominator for teams that rock.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Sometimes people will say the common thing is a trust.
Yes.
But you can't have trust if you don't first feel safe, right? From safety flows trust. They're maybe feeling like two sides of the same coin, but safety has to come first. Maybe just a millisecond first.
All right. You are very well known in the agile world. And your topic, there has to be some connection over into the agile world.
Yeah.
Where is the connection between the rocking teams that have psychological safety and agile?
Mm-hmm. The real connection for me is that, well, agile teams, because of the way that the agile movement has insisted on certain pieces of organizational structure and organizational construction, they tend to have that psychological safety. They don't all, but it is a characteristic of agile teams that really work well together. There's a couple of things that lead to that. One of them is on the leadership side. So when I'm talking about organizations, I'll often talk about the technical practices and business processes, right? As well as the organizational culture and the leadership approach, right? So these four elements make up any organization, whether you're an agile organization or not. The technical practices, business processes, they're easy. You can see them. They're not easy, but they're the things that people want to, quote, adopt when they become agile. But the things that will help you sustain long-term are really organizational culture and leadership approach. And so having a team that has this psychological safety is part of that organizational culture, and it is driven by the leadership, right? The culture flows from the example of the leadership.
Let's take this into practice. Do you have a couple of examples for us of teams that really rock?
Sure. In the presentation, I talked about three different companies, actually. The first one was a company called Menlo Innovations, and they are a software development company. Actually, two of these are software development companies. Menlo Innovations is definitely an agile organization, though they don't use a specific Scrum or XP or Kanban, or they use their own approach, which is fantastic. Right? It should be unique. There are about 50 people in that organization. They're all in one office that has no desks, that has tables they push around and reconfigure almost on a daily basis. Everybody in that company sits in the same room. They all pair when they're doing any of the work that they do. So developers pair, business analysts pair, the product owners pair, so that everything is done in pairs. That is one very intentional culture, right? The CEO there, Richard Sheridan, wrote a book called Joy, Inc. to talk about why he created this company very intentionally to create a space that was specifically designed with joy as the goal.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm pretty speechless here. I've never heard of them, but that sounds like a fabulous approach. I'm just thinking about how I would turn my company into something like that. That would just be, it sounds like a dream come true. When I think back to, I used to work for a bank, and we had cubicles and hundreds of people sitting in this large room. You couldn't see the others, and it was very, very, of course, the cubicle type of business, and it wasn't joyful.
Yeah. Really interesting story about them. When they were starting out and building their culture kind of organically, one of the employees became pregnant, but she loved her work so much, she didn't want to take this long maternity leave. She wanted to keep working. So what do you think they did? The CEO said, "Bring the baby." And so they put a bassinet in the middle of the floor, and there's the baby in the middle of the room. If you go online and look up Menlo Innovations baby, you'll find pictures of them pair programming. Right, here's the two developers.
Yeah, with the baby
on one knee, develop the other person with their hands on the keyboard, working together, and then they'll swap the baby to the other person.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, and I can see that there is a lot of safety in that environment.
Absolutely.
Because everyone's in the same room. You can see what everyone else is doing. Yeah. There is the pair, the teaming up is a very safe environment. Yeah. But you also have to trust these people, of course.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Once you have that safety, then you begin to build that trust. You can begin to build stronger and stronger relationships over time.
All right. What's your next example?
And the other example is actually a complete opposite of that from if you just look at it from the outside, because this is a company called 37 Signals.
Basecamp?
Yes.
Yes.
They wrote Basecamp. They also wrote Ruby on Rails,
Okay.
which lots of people I'm sure have heard of. If you haven't heard of Basecamp, you've heard of Ruby on Rails. And 37 Signals is almost entirely distributed. There are, I think they said in the book, remote, which is, again, written by the CEO. I think there are about 18 people of their 50 or so that work in the office. The rest of them are distributed literally around the world. And they have created, a very intentional culture for high collaboration in a distributed model, but still creating, in this distributed model, that sense of safety among them so that they can work well together.
How have they done that?
Well, a couple of different things. One is specifically hiring for that.
Okay.
Right. So this is how our model is, and if that really appeals to you, then this is where you want to be. And they go specifically looking for those people. Because they are entirely distributed, they don't have a geographical limitation or anything like that as far as doing hiring. So they can find people from anywhere in the world who are the perfect fit for their team.
All right. And what's the third example?
The third example is classic. It's Toyota.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
We've all heard about Toyota, but remind us.
Yes. Actually, I'll tell a little story from a book called The Toyota Kata to talk about how they're intentional in creating that culture there. There's something in an automotive manufacturing plant called an Andon cord or stop the line cord.
Right.
Right. You pull this cord and it stops the line.
And the line stops.
Exactly.
Everybody is allowed to pull it, right?
Yep.
If you find a problem, pull it.
Yeah.
And everybody needs to help and fix it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And by the way, folks, you may hear some background noise here. Well, that's the life of live recording here. Okay. Let's
Live
carry on.
from the Global Congress.
Yes.
Yeah, so anybody can pull the Andon cord. And in the book Toyota Kata, the author tells of a particular factory, and he didn't say which plant it was, that was designed, that was currently receiving about 2,000 pulls a day. Sounds like a lot, but it's the entire plant, not just one part of it. So 2,000 pulls a day, the line would stop, they would fix a problem, pull the thing again, they would start back up again. And that number eventually dropped from 2,000 to 1,500. And in our context, it's like, so they went from having 2,000 problems to having only 1,500 problems. In our organizations these days, most folks would go, "Yay, that's exciting! We've improved. We should be celebrating success." In the Toyota plant, the general manager called an all-hands meeting. In that all-hands meeting, he said, "Okay, the number has dropped from 2,000 to 1,500. Probably one of two things has happened. I'm assuming. Either one, people are afraid to pull the Andon cord and stop the line, and please don't be." Because we need to stop the line to fix the problems and improve. Or two, we've actually improved, in which case we are going to reduce our inventories between stations and speed up the line a little bit. So by doing that, we're going to bring the number back up to 2,000. We want to stop the line 2,000 times.
All right, folks, and we are going to pull the cord as well here.
Yes.
Because we are now seeing what the reason is for the noise here. There is somebody with a huge vacuum cleaner coming our way. And within the next 30 seconds or so, you probably won't be able to hear us.
No.
You will only be able to hear him. So we're going to pull the cord, and we'll be back once he's gone. All right, folks, we are back. We have left the exhibition hall after I pulled the cord. And I believe the last thing we were talking about is how the CEO of that company was talking about trying to reduce inventory between the stations, right?
Right. So in the Toyota manufacturing plant, the general manager had said to reduce the inventories, which essentially speeds up the delivery process. It makes it go faster because you have less buffer basically between stations.
Right.
And speed up the line. Let's get things going, because they wanted to get the number of pulls on the Andon cord, the number of times they stopped the line to fix problems, back up to 2,000, which is
that was the intention. They wanted to keep it high.
Exactly.
So the more people would pull, the more problems they could fix.
Exactly. And that's
the idea.
That's like it's a culture, it's an intentional culture of continuous improvement.
Yeah, and talk about psychological safety. If the CEO calls a hands-on meeting and says, I want you to pull that cord if there is a problem.
Yeah. I want to know
you
about
need
the
to pull this cord.
Yes.
Here's your safety net.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Wow, okay. Let's talk about culture now.
Mm-hmm.
How is culture created?
Culture is created and sustained normally completely by accident.
Okay.
I just talked about 3 companies that were very intentional about it.
Yeah.
But most often, your company, whoever you're listening to this, your company, your organization, your team has a culture. Whether you designed it or not, it has a culture. And the culture is the collective wisdom, the collective understanding of us as a group of people, our beliefs, our thoughts, our history of when I come to a situation, what do I believe the result is going to be of a given action? So if I pull the Andon cord, what is going to be the result of this action? In Toyota, they understand that if they pull the cord, it's a good thing. I've found a problem. I'm going to help improve the company. In many other cultures where they maybe weren't as intentional about creating that kind of structure that says, hey, learning from errors is a good thing, that pulling the cord may actually be seen as a bad thing, and you would want to not pull the cord. Right? Maybe I can not pull the cord and I'll reach in and fix that problem without stopping the line, because stopping the line would be a bad thing. No, in this intentional culture, it is important that you find problems and learn from them. So it's this culture is created through this cultural reinforcement cycle that I call it, that essentially you have memories, I have memories, and they're all in my brain in a memory file. And when I come to a new situation, I think about that situation. I go to my memory files and I look through there, and I pull out the folder that says this situation, right? And I look at that and I decide what I believe is going to happen. And then I take action based on my belief. And that action has some result as the outcome. That result either confirms and reaffirms what's in that memory file and goes in there as another file, or it's different. And that goes in this other file over here as that's an anomaly. So the cultural reinforcement cycle is that memories to thoughts to beliefs to actions to results to memories. And
so if you have a circle that closes back on itself and continues ongoing, that's how you create.
And so the next time you, that's how a culture is reinforced and continues to be. If you want to change it,
that would have been my next question, because you're going to have to break that circle.
Exactly.
Right. If you have an existing culture that doesn't give you the psychological safety, how are you going to get from that to the new culture?
So you need to, as a leader, and I believe leadership is a role, not a position, right? So anybody in any position, anybody in any role can be a leader, right? You can be, anybody on a team can be a leader. As a leader in an organization, you need to be living the change that you want to have happen. And by modeling that, people will start to see. What you may come to a conference like this and go see a great talk on teamwork. and now you have some new ideas. You have no memories that support the ideas that you heard in that talk or on this podcast. You may be hearing some new idea on this podcast. You're like, I have no history that supports that in my organization. But what you want to do if you want to change the culture is, because we're human beings, we have the ability to do things that maybe aren't supported by that history. And so you will want to break that in the memory thoughts space. Insert new thoughts based on what you understand that flow into the beliefs you've made here at the conference. Take new actions based on those thoughts and beliefs.
And change the cycle.
And hopefully get new results.
Right.
Those new results then go over here in the anomalies file, right? Because you still have a big pile of memories that still are there. In my book, I talk about it as like walking paths in the jungle, right? And you have walked a path in your organization until the ground is bare and the bushes have been pushed back, right? It's well-trodden, well-worn path. And now you're wanting to create something new. And you go out and you bushwhack once through this forest, right, to this jungle. It's not going to be a clear path. It's not going to be a clean path. And the next time you come to that same decision point, you are going to have to make a purposeful decision to continue, because that well-worn path is still there, and it will still be the easier way. And so you, again, need to be intentional about going that new direction. After a while, over time of taking that new path, you will wear down the path over there. It will become the well-worn path, and the other path is going to start to get overgrown, and weeds are growing up, and it will not be so appealing anymore, right? You will have more data. If you look at it on a scale, you will have more data points in your history file, in your memories file on the new side than you had in the old side, and it will outweigh.
And that's how you come to a new culture.
That's how you change your culture.
Okay.
It is not easy.
Definitely not. So that's how you change your culture. But how do you create a sense of safety?
That's so the culture you want to create is one with a sense of safety. Well, that actually has to start with you.
Okay.
Right?
You can only change yourself.
The only person you can change is you. Yeah.
Okay.
So by changing your own beliefs and understandings, you will then influence the people around you. And as a leader, culture will flow from your actions, because that's where culture flows from, because people do what the leaders model.
Right.
Right.
In your presentation, you also talk about intentional leadership. Is intentional leadership part of the change that we have to go through?
Absolutely. Yeah, because like I just said, that as a leader, you're going to be setting the culture. You need to model the culture. John Kotter, in his 8-step organizational change model, one of the steps is that you get a group of people together who are your guiding coalition. And that guiding coalition, I didn't talk about it in the presentation at all, but that guiding coalition needs to live out the change, because people will look to them. And if you say one thing and do another, they know it, right? They know it. So
even though you think nobody notices it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And and then they'll do the same thing. They'll give you lip service and then
do something else.
Continue doing something else.
Setting boundaries is also part of your presentation. How does that play into everything?
Absolutely. Setting boundaries is one of the things that helps to create a sense of safety, right? If you have no boundaries within a particular context, it's kind of scary, actually. I have 3 daughters, and if anybody listening to this has kids, you'll relate to this, right? You'll always have these people that tell you, oh, your daughter was over at our house, and she was so polite and so good, and she did these great things. And I'm like, whose kid are you talking about? Because at my house...
Definitely not my daughter, yes.
At my house, she's, pushing the boundaries, and she's fighting back and talking back and, doing all this stuff. And I have wonderful children. Please don't get that wrong. But you know what I mean, right? And the reason that they do that is they feel safe. They push the boundaries because they know where the boundary is to push on. When they're at somebody else's house, they don't know what the boundaries are there. And so they play it safe and go right in the middle. So if you as a leader set clear boundaries of, hey, one of the things I talk about, the role of a leader is, I like to use Martin Luther King as the example. A leader's role is to set the vision and describe the boundaries, right? Set the parameters of if you are within these parameters, this is where we are, this is safe. So Martin Luther King said, I have a dream that one day this nation, United States, will live up to its creed that all men are created equal, right? So that's the vision. The boundaries were nonviolent civil disobedience. If you were participating in violent civil disobedience, you are not part of his movement, right? There's the boundaries. And he didn't then go and say, hey, you people in Baltimore, you have a sit-in on the 29th, and you people over there in Chicago, you do a protest in March. No, there was complete freedom within there, right? But he set the vision and set the boundaries. And beyond that, he acted as a servant leader the organization, to the all the people, right? What can I do to help? What can I do to get the boulders out of the way so that you can be able to do what you are doing to support the cause, right? Acting as a servant leader to the civil rights movement.
You also talk about appreciation towards the end of your presentation. How does appreciation fit into all of this?
Absolutely. No, appreciation is probably, so I didn't want to just talk theory. I want people to walk away from my presentations with something they can actually do when they go home. And appreciation is the single most often cited cause for people leaving their work, right? Leaving their job. From CEOs to janitors, right? CEOs leave their jobs because they don't feel appreciated. And we think, wow, I mean, they're making millions of dollars. They get these huge bonuses. Why do you not feel appreciated? Because people don't tell them that they appreciate them, right? So we need to be telling the people on our teams, telling our peers, telling our bosses that we appreciate them.
Is that part of the creating the psychological safety?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if I know that you appreciate the work I'm doing, then I feel appreciated, right? I feel valued. I feel safe within this context. So I talk about how to actually deliver an appreciation, how to say, I appreciate you doing this. And really one of the keys is teaching people how to receive appreciation, because we tend to be self-deprecating, right? So to just say, thank you.
Exactly.
And not say, oh, it was nothing.
Yeah.
Right? If you say, oh, it was nothing, you're not letting that sink into your soul, right? And you really need to learn how to receive appreciation and let it just marinate.
All right. So we have learned that teams flop in many ways.
Absolutely.
And it's really the wrong question to ask. The right question to ask is, why do they rock? And they do rock because they have psychological safety. We've seen many examples, and we've heard your tips and tricks that people can apply. When you began on the journey for this presentation, what was the one wisdom that you wanted to give to the attendees, the 80 people that participated today in your presentation, and the over 20,000 that are right now listening to this?
Yeah. The one thing that I want people to take away from this podcast and from the talk is that you as an individual can impact the team that you are on. No matter what role you're playing, you can have an impact in creating a team that rocks by helping create a sense of psychological safety within that team.
All right, Joseph, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Cornelius.